All right, everybody. So you guys have been asking us how much money we spent on our California road trip from Florida. 28 days on the road. Let me tell you, the numbers are astonishingly high. Hotels were $5,449 for 28 days on the road. Usually, I can get hotels for about $100 a night in some parts of the country. I only stay at Marriott hotels, and they were averaging at about $187 a night. And when you get to places like San Francisco, you can definitely expect a few hotel stays that were close to $340. Gas was $912 in our Toyota Camry, just like the one here. Now, when we did the Colorado road trip in our pickup truck, we spent almost $4,000 on fuel. So the Toyota Camry has saved us easily $4,000 to $5,000 just on this road trip. Sorry about the noise in the background. For some reason, every semi truck and teenager with an exhaust system has decided to come into my neighborhood today. Food cost is complicated because I do Starbucks for breakfast, and that's $32 every single day. You might have McDonald's, so these are categories of travel where you might spend more or less than me, but that's how we roll with Starbucks in the morning. So just do that, $1,000 in Starbucks practically on this road trip. That might be excessive for you, but it's about average for me. The annual cost of Starbucks for me and Katie is probably what a Burger King full-time employee makes in a year. So that's an issue we have to work on there. A night out in California in a big city or along the coast is going to cost you $120 for dinner. And if you stay in a fancier spot like Monterey, you're easily talking between $180 to $240 for dinner. It's the most I've ever spent on dinner anywhere in America, but that's what it costs to eat dinner in a fancy location overlooking the ocean. So we can say that the food cost is going to vary from person to person, but if I'm going to go to San Francisco, I'm going to have dinner on the water. I'm not going to go to a big, incredible road trip and then eat McDonald's for dinner to be stingy, but each person has their own budget, and that's what it costs. I mean, it is what it is. I calculate tolls were about $36. Now, I could get a ticket in the mail for blowing a red light somewhere or something. I don't know. That's always unpredictable. On a New York road trip, it was ridiculous. I think like $140 in tolls, but every road trip is different, and I think California's tolls weren't too bad. Paying for toll roads is just part of the American travel experience. Cash tips were easily $300 to $400. If you're staying at Marriott hotels or they have valet service, you have to tip the valet guy. You have to tip people at restaurants, sometimes a little extra. Like, you're going to spend money on tips. Like, so just grab $400 and put them in your pocket and know that's going to be like the homeless person that won't go away, the valet drivers, anybody who really deserves a tip and needs to get it. When you enter big cities, you're going to have to pay valet when you enter the hotel, when you leave the hotel. The people that carry your bags might need a tip. And sometimes you go out for a late night drive, the car's in valet, you got to pull it out, pull it in. So that's like 4 or 5 tips right there. And if you're going to be traveling to big cities, most likely you're going to stay at hotels that have valet service, that have security, because you're not going to like stay at the Motel 6 in a city you've never been to because you don't know how grimy it gets. Usually the first night in a big city, we'll stay at a fancier hotel. And then once we get familiar with the area, we'll decide if it's necessary to pay the hotel fee again, or if we can step it down to something more affordable. But the first night in a big city, we always go to the hotel downtown with all those services because we don't know how grimy it is for real. So yeah, tips, $400 easy. Shopping and entertainment ran us about $1,900 on this trip. We had to buy clothes for the colder weather we didn't have on us. You're going to have fun while you're on the road. Just, I think going on a boat tour to look at whales was like $140 in Monterey, but then we tipped $30 because the people that did the tour did a really good job. So shopping and entertainment, that's how much we ran up. And again, I know some of these numbers sound excessive, but Katie got a lot of clothes that she needed. I got a lot of clothes that I needed. So I'm not going to go to Las Vegas, Phoenix, and Los Angeles and not do shopping. You know what I mean? Like, these are world-renowned shopping destinations. So could have actually been a lot worse. I wanted to buy a few really expensive items, but then Balenciaga got in trouble and I wasn't allowed to buy their stuff anymore. To me, I'm not gonna go to Phoenix and not go shopping. I'm not gonna go to Las Vegas and not go shopping. Like, if you're gonna go to these destinations, you gotta budget for shopping and entertainment. And sometimes these entertainments can get a little expensive. So if you're gonna travel, I travel like a boss, because traveling without a budget is possibly one of the worst things you could ever do. You're better off if you have $2,000, do like a trip for $2,000 where you can enjoy like that. Even if you, instead of making it a 4-day trip, you got to make it a 2-day trip. I would rather be 2 days on the road with a bigger budget than to be a long time on the road with a limited budget. If you're gonna travel, go shopping, go get some little souvenirs at a tourist shop. Like, make the whole thing be worth it. And that's kind of what we did on this California trip. Like, we didn't cut any corners. We went shopping at the most incredible stores. We did the most awesome adventures that you could pay for as far as entertainment. Like, we stayed at the best hotels we could. We did not cut any corners on this road trip. So whatever this road trip cost, I'll tell you at the end of the video. But this is how you do it like a boss. If you're gonna road trip, my suggestion is, and if, let's say, you can do 10 days on a really tight budget, or 5 days like a boss, do 5 days like a boss. Like, don't ever cut expenses while you travel. Like, make it be worthwhile. Go shopping. Have a budget where you can do a whole lot more, not a budget where you're limited. Basic cost of this road trip between hotels and fuel was $6,300. So you could assume that you could take a 28-day road trip from Florida to California and pull it off with about $7,000 to $8,000 if you are a stingy piece of crap and don't mind staying with bed bugs. Now, if you a big boss like Rick Ross, you could rack up about $11,000 on this road trip. Keep in mind, if I still had my pickup truck, this would have been close to $14,000 to $15,000. So I'm not gonna complain too much about my Toyota Camry, because it saved me several $1,000s on this road trip. I think the hotel cost for traveling in the winter was a little bit ridiculous. There are usually times of the year where you can get hotels in Texas, Louisiana, like the middle of the United States, like let's say from Alabama all the way into about New Mexico. You could sometimes get hotels in the wintertime for about $120, and that would have made $1,000 difference. Unfortunately, for some reason I don't understand, hotels were ridiculously expensive during this trip. And in fact, when we stayed in San Francisco, we stayed in the outskirts because hotels right in San Francisco were just about at $500 a night, and it just isn't worth it. I will mention that there was a few specific days on this road trip where we did spend close to $1,000, $700 to $1,000. Cities like Monterey, California, we were at about $800 for the day. San Francisco easily pushed $600 a day. And Las Vegas, because we did shopping. Phoenix, because we did shopping. These are all road-related costs. And when you enter big cities like Monterey, California, you're going to eat at a fancy restaurant. Like, I couldn't see myself going to Monterey and not having the full travel experience. I couldn't see myself going to San Francisco and staying at a really crappy hotel. Like, once you get to these big destinations, you really want to go out like a big boss. You want to go out there and see the whales. You're going to have dinner at the restaurant with a fancy view. Like, if you can do it, you're going to do it. I think next time I go to California, I'm going to get on an airplane. The last 17 days of this road trip were not enjoyable. We were very tired, and then we realized we had to drive all the way back to Florida. Getting to California was fun, but once we were there and realized we had to drive back, it went from a very fun road trip to an agonizing return to Florida. And we were planning to come back on the northern route, but we had to come back the same route we came in through because the snow was already further north. So we pushed the winter in order to get the most out of our money because hotels are cheaper during the winter. But unfortunately, the winter also prevented us from doing a lot of great stuff. So while I thoroughly enjoyed seeing California, I'm going to tell you, you are way better off hopping on a plane and renting a car when you go there. Also, having Florida tags in California makes you a very desirable target for anybody looking to carjack you, because you're so far from home that criminals think you're a good target. I would definitely rent a car and fly an airplane next time I go to California. And I think a California road trip is an absolute must. I would rather, if I could redo this again, instead of doing it in the winter, I would have preferred to do it in the summertime. And even if I spent $15,000 because hotels were more expensive, being able to kind of come back on Interstate 40, and instead of having to drive back the way I came down Interstate 10, it would have been much more enjoyable. We didn't get to see the Grand Canyon in Arizona because it was snowed out. We got to see a lot of great stuff. We still got to see Las Vegas. We still got to see a lot of great stuff. Through Texas, we took a few routes that were kind of not the most fastest routes, but the most scenic. So I enjoyed the road trip thoroughly. I don't know if I'm ever going to make this money back on YouTube because it seems like we spent more money than what was humanly possible on this road trip. So this is going to be more of a life memory for us than a cash cow. Like literally, I can spend a few days in Louisville or in Houston and keep it under $1,400 easily. But this trip was extraordinarily expensive. So I don't think I'm ever going to make this money back on YouTube, but not everything in life is about making money. Sometimes you really got to enjoy something. And let me tell you, this has been so far out of 31 states we've been in, the most incredible travel experience yet. I know people say a lot of bad stuff about California, but look, it's the best travel destination we've seen so far. And we didn't even get to see the Tahoes and all that stuff. So I really regret a lot of things about this road trip. We kind of are finding things out the hard way. I want to see if in the summer I can get on an airplane, fly into San Francisco, go and see the mountains, see Reno, see like the Tahoes and all that, and then come back maybe through Los Angeles or something. We'll figure something out, and I'll let you know what that trip costs. Most of our trips to Michigan and New York and stuff like that are running at about $7,000 or $8,000. Having a car that's fuel efficient is an absolute must if you're going to be traveling across the country. And I don't think my pickup truck would have been in any way practical to pay $3,000 or $4,000 more. Could I have saved money on hotels? Yes, but we are working when we're on the road. Could I have pulled this trip off in 12 days? Absolutely. But again, we're making YouTube videos as we go on the way there and on the way back. So you have to understand that we have to slow things down because we're working while we're on the road. Unlike a conventional road trip where you're just going, we have to kind of say, okay, we're going to do this road trip. We're going to spend $12,000 or $10,000, but we're going to make back some of it. You know, it's not all complete loss. And that's why we have to work while we're on the road. And it was the most exhausting road trip. I think for the last possibly 12 days of the road trip, Katie was completely out of it. She drained all her energy reserves. She was just kind of like alive and in the car, but not really like in her full capacity. So I think next time we do on a road trip, we have to knock it out in 14, 15 days. Any trip that takes you past the 14 to 17 day mark, those last few days are going to be so tiring and exhausting that you won't really be able to enjoy it. And I think the biggest mistake we made with this road trip was extending the trip so far that the whole last part of that trip was not enjoyable. At about 2 weeks on the road, you start to miss your bed, you start to miss your house, you start to miss your like daily routine. So I would consider, if you're ever doing a cross-country road trip, perhaps instead of one long drawn-out trip like we did on this, it's just not worth it. Like, you really will not enjoy the full 28, 30 days of that road trip. And actually, I'm saying 28 days, but it was really like 29 or 30 days because there were like, if you consider the day you pack and leave and all that, and the fact that the night we got back back after midnight. So I don't think a road trip needs to go longer than 14 days. Anything beyond that, you're no longer enjoying the road trip, and you start to feel homesick and stuff like that. And we've experienced this with the New York trip and the other Midwest trip that we did. So in the future, when we do these road trips, we're going to say 14 days maximum, because once you extend that period, you go from enjoying yourself to just kind of feeling overwhelmed. Keep in mind, too, that we're paying $2,000 a month just in rent. So If you throw that in there, I paid $2,000 to be at an apartment that was completely empty for an entire month. So that's just another kind of unrelated cost, but I factor it in because it's like when you're gone for 28 days, you're still paying for the full month's rent, even though you're not there. So that to me counts because time is money. So I would definitely say when you do these road trips, like don't just draw them out into long road trips. Just compact it into a nicer, smaller road trip and make those days count more by having more energy, more budget, and just more ability to enjoy it to the full. There you go. That's what it costs to hit the road. And we are able to write this off because it is for YouTube. Let's be honest, if it wasn't for YouTube, I wouldn't have gone on this road trip. So this is a complete write-off for us for the most part. And we definitely need that write-off because Hurricane Ian was a huge month for my YouTube channel. And I would rather just blow it. So we made all that money during the hurricane coverage. And I just wanted to burn that money on a road trip so that I could kind of write it off. And even with all the money that I spent on this road trip, it still wasn't like enough to cover what I made during the hurricane coverage because the hurricane coverage was like the most incredible month I've ever had on YouTube. People from all over the world were watching this. And yeah, there was reporters that came from all over the world to cover the hurricane, but they don't know Southwest Florida like I do. I knew every square inch of Southwest Florida. So when the hurricane coverage came around, who do you think had the best coverage? I did. So but that's a once in a lifetime opportunity. It's not like every month you're gonna have a hurricane destroy your hometown and you'll be able to profit off of that. I also went to places that as a tourist you're not supposed to go to. I got to see Compton, Oakland, Watts, like every single place you're not supposed to go to as a tourist in California. I did all of that and more. I'm probably not welcome in Oakland, California. The video got 20,000 views in 2 weeks, and they're not very happy about my opinion about their town. Oakland, California may be a tough place, but they sure are a bunch of crybabies if you read their comments on that video. However, the city of Bakersfield has given us their seal of approval. So Bakersfield, California also got over 20,000 views in 2 weeks. And they love Jose and Katie, but Oakland, California, we'll have to stay out of that one. All right, everybody, that's what it costs to do a cross-country road trip like a boss. There's another benefit of this road trip is that I have racked up 100,000 reward points with Marriott. Now, I don't have a deal with Marriott for advertisement. They're my personal favorite brand, but I will tell you that they have good benefits and I'm loyal to them because I get these reward points and I have now 100,000 reward points through Marriott. And with those reward points, I don't know if I could stay 2 nights at a Ritz-Carlton in Naples, which would usually cost you at about $2,000. But I don't know what I'm going to do with my reward points. I've been saving them up, and now I have 100,000 points, and I'm like, I could probably do a 5 to 7 day road trip in the deep south when the weather's good, and that will be able to cover my hotel stays. I would only be paying for fuel, which is insignificant. So I'm wondering if I should do like a 5 to 7 day road trip and use up my reward points that way, or if I should have 2 really incredible nights at a Ritz-Carlton in Naples, Florida. Now, I'd have to wait until the summertime or the spring if I'm going to do the Ritz-Carlton because now in the winter, they get to be over $1,200 a day. And even if I use my reward points at a Ritz-Carlton, I would still have to pay for valet, parking, and all types of other Ritz-Carlton expenses. So if you, the audience, now have the opportunity to answer this question. If you had 1,000 reward points for Marriott, would you have 2 nights at a Ritz-Carlton in Naples or 7 days in like regular places in the South? How would you use those reward points? Let me know in the comment section because I was thinking about spending 2 days in the Ritz-Carlton in Naples. That'd be really cool. Or I could just take 7 days in the deep south. How would you use those reward points if you had them? Let me know in the comments below. Rent a Lambo out of pocket and spend 2 days in Naples with a Lambo at Ritz-Carlton. dream to be a billionaire for like 2 days, or take 7 days on a nice 7 to 10 days on a road trip to the south, and the cost of that road trip would almost be solely on my reward points and my very nice fuel economy. I don't know how many hotel stays it took me to get to the 100,000 points, but I will say this: it was way more than the California trip. I already had a bunch of reward points before the California trip, and there was a few horrendous customer service experiences in Playa del Rey, I think it's called, by Venice, where we had a horrendous experience. So they had to throw like 20,000 extra points at me. But how would you use 100,000 points from Marriott, guys? Let me know. Also, could I fly back to California or to another destination? Like, let's say, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and I'll pay the plane ticket and I'll pay the rental car, and then use those reward points like flying destinations. I could even get a passport. Should I get a passport and use those reward points for a really nice hotel in a different country? How would you spend these 100,000 points? Let me know, because I feel like I'm ready to hit the road again, except for we've been sick for about 2 weeks now and we're not getting any better. Is there something going around? Because everybody's getting sick again.